All right, on today's episode of Python Papi, we're back inside our TensorFlow course, and we did finish up our section of saving our model, which was nothing more than what we did yesterday in our artificial intelligence course. It's pretty much the same. The only difference is he was showing us the example of how to do it with the editor he's using, so it really didn't apply to what I was doing because I'm using VS Code and he's using the PyJupyter. So yeah, but I can't go over some of the specifics and things to look out for when we're actually saving our models, so we can pick that up today right now. So TensorFlow allows us to save our model. Now we'll have to differentiate between a model's configuration and a model's weight. Let's suppose we have a model that is defined as such. We have the input, which we pass into a count layer. Then we have batch normalization. We have pooling for subsampling, and then we have flattening. And after flattening, we pass through a dense layer, and we have our output. Now, all the parameters for the creation of this model are known as the model's configuration. In a model's configuration, we may have it that the model, for example, like in this case, the model starts with a count layer with 6 filters, kernel size of 3, batch normalization, and all of that stuff. So these are the model's configurations. But this model's configurations are different from the model's weights. The model's weights are those filters we have, for example, in the case of the COV 2D. So we have the model weights and the model's configuration. And upon summarizing the model, we see clearly that we have a COV 2D and then we have a number of parameters. And so whenever we want to save a model, we have to take into consideration the configuration and the weights because for this same configuration, we can have different weights. And so there are actually two main options. The first option is to save the full model, and this is to save the model configuration and the model weights. Another option will be to save only the model weights. Now, this option is used when, for example, when we don't want to or we don't even know the model configuration up front. So if we define the model's configuration, we've trained it, we've got the new weights, and this is the current model state. But if we take this to another environment where we don't have this configuration, then if we save this model's configuration and weights, all we need to do is just load this configuration and weights which have been packaged as the full model. Now, in another case where we are able to get the configuration and all we need is the weights, then we'll just save the weights and then reload the weights since we already have the configuration. Either way, we'll always need the configuration and the weights. Nonetheless, it is important to note that the most important part of this is actually the weights, since working with the randomized or randomly initialized weights after we've trained our model isn't very useful. Sometimes it may take many days to train our models. So imagine we train our model for, let's say, 10 days, for example, and then we want to reuse that model and the weights have been randomly initialized. The 10 days of training will have been wasted. So it's saying that if we have a good configuration and we have weights and then we save our model and then we re-upload our model, the configuration will stay the same. But because of the weights are randomly initialized, those may change. So that will make all of the training we've done useless because we have the configuration, but we're a whole different set of weights, meaning that the weights that we had are different from the weights that we might get when we re-upload our model. So all the calculations will be different. So we need to ensure that we save our weights properly such that we could reuse them. Now the great thing with TensorFlow is that we could always continue training from the state. So this means that at this point where we've gotten the model's performance, let's say at 94%, for example, we could keep training from there so that we could get an even higher percentage, like 99%, for example. So they're saying that we did save our model at like a 94 percentage and then we re-uploaded it correctly where everything stayed the same. We can actually pick up where we left off from that 94% and continue training it to get to an even higher percentage, like a 99%, for example. And that is why we have to ensure that saving is done properly, like I said, for those purposes. Now let's get into that. Now, these next few steps, he actually went over the process of saving it to his actual code or editor that he's using. It didn't really apply to us because we're not using that editor. So yeah, the most important thing I took away from this was looking out for what to look for and what to properly save and how to properly save those options and what to do when we don't save those options correctly. So yeah, that was pretty much the gist of that. That was all that was to saving. I guess we'll go over it again later on, or maybe that was just it. I don't know. But the next actual module we're going to be diving into is going to be to functional. It's going to be functional APIs, and I have that queued up here for us to start tomorrow. So yeah, we will pick that back up. But of course, I will keep you posted every step of the way. But for now, this is the Python Papi. You guys stay Gucci.